Howdy.
D, and welcome to But It Was Aliens, the paranormal comedy podcast where we probe paranormal activity to determine for the questionable benefit of humanity as to whether that activity really was paranormal. My name is Mr. Kev in the John, and alongside me with no idea what we'll be covering today is Mr. Granville Moonwalker.
Hi.
Today, we are returning to Poland for a probe that quite frankly was going to be a side probe, and you'll understand why as we get into it. But we've got a few listeners from this part of the world, it turns out, who were quite happy when we covered Jan Wolski and the Breslau Vampire in consecutive weeks. So as a little thank you for supporting the show, I thought I'd bring this case to the masses too. It occurred to me as I was preparing this episode that this is a dangerous way to thank our listeners, as I'm pretty much about to balls up a whole bunch of pronunciations and possibly destroy some urban legends or start a whole new bunch of dirty rumours, but thank you. Thank you.
I'm so glad this is you and not me.
We begin our tale today in Ostrał Wielkopolski, which is in west central Poland, about 3 hours and change from Warsaw, and near 4 hours drive northwest of Krakow, and about 4.5 hours east of Berlin. Geography probers, geography. But we aren't here to cover geography today. This place has got quite an important history in terms of the Polish secret military organisation who formed in this area to protect Poland just before World War II. But we aren't here to cover history today. Now let me introduce you to some geography and history, dear probers. Woe. Now I know that isn't the most Polish of names, but I didn't write this. But Woe was a young lady in her mid-20s who was enjoying her youth. It was a weekend during the summer of 1990, so of course Woe was preparing for the next best night out of her young life. Woo! Come 7 in the evening, the girls had squatted up and were on the pre-drinks. Now remember, this was 1990. The new rave scene was emerging all over Europe, whereby dirty, sweaty nightclubs were opening everywhere. And if that wasn't good enough, people were commandeering local fields for illegal rave parties laced with all sorts of substances and shenanigans. This was the early 90s, so pre-drinks weren't 4% vodka lights. They were 40% vodka straight. Hell, they could have been 95%. The girls were feeling it. It was time to head out.
What a time to be alive.
What a life. The group supposedly headed to the Guarana Premium Club. Now, full disclosure, I'm not 100% sure if that was the club's name during 1990, because I'm not even sure the place was built in 1990, but the geography isn't important. Geography is mainly volcanoes and shit when you think about it, and eruptions are an event, so it's the events that we are interested in, the history. I actually asked a dog walker, and he told me that whilst he hadn't heard of the event specifically, he felt it was more likely this took place in an upstairs or downstairs room within a food establishment, which has left me mildly suspicious of Polish food establishments, but that's also kind of cool. Secret venues. The bloke told me he works in a restaurant and is a DJ, which I don't think had any bearing on his suggestion. Anyway, the girls went to some form of rave or party. At this party, a gentleman caught Woe's eye from across the room. The gentleman was tall, dark and handsome, with a devilish glimmer in his eye. It was almost as if the gentleman gave off the very scent of sex, and it made Woe quiver. How could she smell him from so far away? But she knew it was him. But Woe was a respectable lady who simply did not touch any base on a first night, so Woe kept to the other side of the venue and tried to focus her attention elsewhere.
Now, how many times in saying whoa did you want to do the Cody Rhodes entrance whoa?
0, actually.
Oh, aren't you boring?
Yes, incredibly.
Ooh, so he has a sexual scent about him.
Yeah.
A presence.
Wouldn't the scent of sex be pretty like musty and horrid if you think about it?
Yeah, but I think that pre-smell. That she's horny already, and something has caught her nose, and she's gone, him.
She can smell clapping.
That is him. He's the one. Like that moment when it's like adverts now for aftershaves and perfumes. They'll be in a crowded room and then that person will catch that scent and then they're just looking for that scent. I reckon this is that in a more natural state.
Yeah, in a secret club.
Mm-hmm.
Woe's squad took turns approaching the gentleman. He was a hottie, so everyone of course wanted to speak to him. Hell, everyone in the room was trying it with him, and not just the ladies, but the gentleman just didn't seem interested in anyone. One of Woe's friends swore the guy was bad news and wasn't worth the price, whatever that meant, but even she had a crack at him.
She got turned down. It's not worth it.
Woe had been checking in her... Woe had been checking in her peripheral and was almost certain the chap was alone, but that somehow made him even hotter to Woe. Woe snapped. She approached the chap, but someone knocked into Woe as she closed in. Woe turned for just a moment before continuing on her way, but the hot pupper had vanished. Woe looked all around, but he was gone. Suddenly, Woe heard a deep pulsating voice in her ear. The voice said, "I've been waiting for you." Woe thought, ooh, this guy had some cheek. Doesn't he know that etiquette is for the man to approach? But as Woe had this thought, she realised that the rumble of his voice had left her hairs standing on end. Goosebumps.
Sexual vampire magnetism.
Yeah. This chap hit Woe with the smoothest line. It was almost as if the gentleman already somehow knew Woe's name. The gentleman said, "You've got a body like Woe." I know, it was ahead of its time. Woe responded, stating that, "I am Woe." As the two began chatting, Woe noticed that there was a weird smell of sulphur all around this smooth gentleman.
Got a body like Woe. I think it's Black Rob.
I've put a good 6 minutes of groundwork into that punchline just for your benefit.
Paid off. Congratulations.
So any force?
No.
Nothing at all.
Oh, is he a vampire?
Well, I guess sulphur kind of smell. What could that be? Like vampire ash?
Eggs.
He's carrying eggs in his pocket.
Oh, we can't get off that fucking picture. That's cracking me.
Don't know what you're talking about.
Well played, sir. Well played.
No one's going to have any idea what's going on at this point.
I'm calm.
I'm just letting you know that it was at this point in the research that I finished my first fruity cider and started on the rum. Woe and the gentleman continued to chat. The gentleman's lines got smoother and smoother, and Woe was finding it increasingly difficult to resist the gentleman. There was some almost otherworldly energy about him, like he could shake Woe's love pearls all the way to her soul. That was it. Woe gave in. The two started going at it, tongues in the corner of the room, engaging in a standing dry hump. It was one of those hookups where everyone else looking on is like, God damn, that is disgusting. They were basically banging with their clothes on. Woe didn't do this. Woe never did this. But here she was. Suddenly, the man stopped tongue-lashing Woe and whispered in her ear,
Do you happen to know the time?
Woe responded, confirming it to be bang on midnight. The gentleman then led Woe by the hand to the bathrooms. As they walked, the man's feet made a rather loud sound with every step, but Woe thought nothing of it. A few minutes later, Woe's friends, who had been watching on jealous, went to check on Woe. As they entered the bathroom, it was disgusting. There was blood everywhere, all over the bathroom walls and even the ceiling. Woe's limp body lay in a corner. There were no cuts or bruising, just blood dripping out of Woe's mouth and eyes. It was almost as if Woe's very insides had just left her body through her face. Woe's friends alerted the venue and a group rushed outside to find the man. As they got outside, they saw the man inside a fully black BMW with the driver's side window down. Even the alloys were black. The car didn't have a license plate. The man chuckled as he drove off, and the group swore that the man had little horns, but he moved too fast to tell. What they definitely did confirm was that instead of wing mirrors, the BMW itself had demon horns.
Oh, that sounds like a sexy car. Oh my god. Right. I'm composed.
Whoa.
Shut up. So she has been murdered by the devil, it would seem.
Something like
or
that, I guess.
a demon of some kind.
Yeah, that would be a fair assumption to make. That kind of mess and the way the wounds were, that's pretty supernatural, isn't it?
But then...
Like, what sort of human could cause that effect?
What's he done? And what's the point? Like, if the body is fully intact and there's blood everywhere,
Like coming out
I
of
suppose we don't know what's still within the body until an autopsy is done.
Yeah.
So did he do it just to kill her, or did he take her soul, or something like that?
Yeah, maybe his role is to tempt people to sin and then claim their soul.
But then why her?
Because she made the move.
But then so did her friend.
Maybe he liked to tempt the purest of people.
I was literally about to say, what if it's a case of the purest soul in the room?
Maybe he picked the one with the most slamming body, because Woe had that body like.
Whoa.
But then, have you ever heard of a demon driving away in a BMW?
Yes. I really want a BMW, but I don't want a BMW.
Because you don't want to be that guy?
They're unreliable and stupidly expensive to fix when they have so many oil issues.
Isn't that Mercedes that are famed for that?
No.
For being oil leakers specifically. No. To be fair, German industry is usually fairly reliable.
Except BMs. Which is annoying because they are sexy as fuck. Certain models, anyway.
Why don't you just get a Porsche?
Yeah, it's down the line.
The man was never found, and this wasn't the first or last attack. I'm not going to beat around the bush. What we have been introduced to today is a well-known demon during 1980s and 1990s Poland, and indeed Central to Eastern Europe. The creature has two forms, that of a handsome human and that of the demon that it truly is. The dastardly creature can usually be found in car parking lots outside of the disco, though it may venture in. The creature would approach people and usually innocently ask them for the time, though as we've covered, sometimes it got more intense. If the person responded with the time, the demon would kill them and probably claim their soul. I'm not entirely sure as to whether that murder was generally instant or if the demon just marked people to come back and murk them later when they weren't in public. You've probably guessed here that the witness accounts we have aren't very clear. I suppose I should give you the demon's name. It was quite literally the Disco Demon.
Amazing. When you mentioned the demon waiting in, like, outside of discos,
Yep.
what I pictured was the demon from the Buffy episode where he makes them sing and dance and put on a show.
Yeah.
Like, something like that.
Feeling.
That's the one.
Well,
Except he drives a BM.
a horny BM. Yeah, and generally, like I say, there are exceptions, like in Woe's case, but in general, he loiters around car parks, which used to be where people would leave the disco before town centres all built up and whatnot. And he'd just look cool, sexy in the corner. Someone would approach him. He'd ask them for the time. If they give him the time, they're dead. I have an image of this monstrous demon for you now, Mr. Moonwalker, but be warned, this is quite the beast. Please describe for our listeners what you are gazing upon as you gaze upon this legitimate photo of the demon.
Right. I've not looked, but you
Right.
have literally said this monstrous demon
Yeah.
is quite the beast.
Mm-hmm.
So my brain immediately goes to, this is either going to be hideously large or like it's going to be the ugliest demon in the world, or it's going to be minuscule. Those are the three things my mind instantly went to.
Okay.
Not a normal, what we would associate with in media terms, a demon.
Mm-hmm. Mr. Moonwalker did miss the mark, I can confirm.
Is this its human form or its demon form?
This is the human form.
Okay. So we pretty much have Disco Pete here. He's got, are they bell bottoms?
Yep.
Bell bottoms,
Platform
shoes, proper disco shirt tucked in,
And half
top
unbuttoned.
button
Yeah.
unbuttoned, some form of necklace, long hair, moustache, sunglasses, and that is the Disco Demon.
In a Saturday Night Fever
Yeah, that's
hoisting
it.
pose. Now, Mr. Moonwalker, I'm just going to show you a close-up of those very same feet from the Disco Demon image, just so you can see what we're dealing with here.
Now you're going to show me goat feet, aren't you?
Absolutely not.
Yeah. Now what I'm seeing is goat hooves in the shape of disco shoes.
Gold, shiny disco
Yeah.
shoes. Yep. I've just shown Mr. Moonwalker a close-up of the hooves from the first image, to which we'll try to post both on our Instagram at But It Was Aliens. Yes, hooves.
Those would be incredibly hard to walk in.
And loud. This creature was clearly no human. It was a man with sparkly disco hooves. I mentioned the sound of its footsteps, but I left out in our first account that several witnesses remembered seeing shiny shoes almost as if they were disco hooves.
Night fever, night fever. Why is time important?
Maybe time was either created and or associated with olden religion, or the creature exists outside of time and considers it an affront to God to commit crime when time is involved.
Reaching, maybe?
Slightly. Why do you think?
I really don't have a clue.
Maybe that was just the best cold opener that the demon could think of.
Yeah.
You got time, mate?
What if it's a case of you having a conversation? Or
It was just engaging in conversation that allowed the demon to claim your soul,
what if?
and that's the easiest conversation with a stranger, because most strangers will give you the time if you ask.
What if it's a case of there's only a specific time it can take a specific soul,
Ooh, I like it.
but it's only if you say that number. So if I was to say to you, like if I was to, let's say I had demon eyes and I looked and above you was 3 o'clock and I said to you, what's the time? And you looked at your watch and you said 2 minutes past 3, I couldn't do anything because you'd given me the wrong time. So it wouldn't be time for you to die. Maybe he's just made up a set of rules just to entertain himself.
Just for giggles.
Shits and gigs.
Well, I know what I've given you thus far is pretty solid, but there are some issues with this case.
Sure.
There are some issues, yes. I've said before, I do not speak Polish. I tried to look up Polish land registries to see if that nightclub was around in 1990, but I couldn't understand a thing, and even using translators, they came out incomprehensible to me. Likewise, I probably read 100 accounts of this demon or so, I thought, but I couldn't make sense of any of them. The translations seemed to veer off into other topics and creatures. I think this is one of those creatures that appears on loads of those top 5 paranormal so-and-so lists, so all I'd get is the name Disco Demon, asking for the time, and then a bunch of unrelated stuff. But what if that's not due to a language barrier? Does this demon actually cover their tracks online so that they can fade into obscurity?
That'd be pretty clever. Pretty clever indeed. You don't want the world knowing about how to deal with you.
Exactly. And why would we think that demons and otherworldly entities can't use the internet and whatnot? It's there
They were
to...
born by it, molded by it.
I was conceived in Reddit.
The Reddit monster.
I'm now going to give you a second account. Amelia, a 20-year-old student, was outside a club in the car park waiting to be picked up. A dark, handsome gentleman was seen by Amelia's friends to approach Amelia, and the two spoke. Amelia appeared to look at her watch before saying something else, and the gentleman headed away, getting in a blacked-out BMW. Amelia got in her ride and went home. All was well. Amelia was dropped off at home with several witnesses, but this was the last anyone ever saw of Amelia. The next morning, she was gone. Amelia lived with 2 of her friends, and both were adamant that she never left the house after coming home, but she was gone. There wasn't even any blood on this occasion. No evidence of a struggle. Nothing. Gone.
Was she seen entering the house?
Yes. Entered the house, then was just gone.
Were her roommates there when she got in, or did other people see her enter?
As I understand it, the people who dropped her off saw her enter and the roommates were there. Then she was gone.
Gone.
Poof.
Well, she just climbed out the window because I've had enough. I'm leaving.
I must find Disco Pete.
What if she didn't want to deal with uni anymore?
Life got too much and she just wanted to go elsewhere.
Yep. No.
Backpacking across Europe.
Or America.
Got to get there.
See you when you get there. Planes, trains and automobiles.
But yeah, she'd need a passport and that'd be traceable if she'd got on a flight, I guess is what I'm saying.
Oh, so
Whereas
there's
she
no...
could just throw a backpack on, hitchhike, gone. Off the grid.
Fake ID.
I mean, she could have eventually got on a boat and, yeah, fake ID is possible.
They were...
But she was never seen again anyway.
I would say they worked better back in the day.
Than they do now, certainly, yeah.
Never had one.
Never needed one.
No.
That is pretty much the case. I know I've thrown a lot of facts and details at you today, dear probers, but we're going to try to briefly analyse and theorise beneath this unbelievable case. Looking to science, sort of, can we explain this beast away? Well, it's believed by some that this disco demon was actually a hoax implemented via the Polish authorities to discourage people from going to discos and illegal raves. The government does not want you to enjoy yourself. Perhaps the authorities associated raving with misadventure and would rather the youth were responsible or signed up to the military, for example. On that note, another possibility is that this story didn't come from the government but rather from the older generations who were trying to discourage youngsters from raving. Perhaps they were worried about the associated substance misuse, or maybe they were just miserable pricks. When you have a widespread story like this, it can also serve as a cover story. If the secret authorities want to off someone, boom, attribute it to the disco demon or make it look like someone is trying to make it look like the disco demon. Just do a shitty enough job and the people will be convinced. Is this story used to cover up shady Secret Service activity? That is the probe.
That could be the case, but with the two that are unfortunately deceased in this moment, what could they have done to warrant Secret Service level
Well, we don't know anything about them because it's all
death?
covered up and secret. They could have been data hackers, they could have been substance involved.
Could have been peddlers.
Yep. Who knows?
With this being the 90s, do we have... I know you mentioned articles in Polish and everything like that, but are there any pictures?
Not a shred. Physically could not be less.
Whoa.
In summary, we've today covered the Disco Demon, aka Diabeł-z-Dyskoteki, a shape-shifting demon who takes the form of a handsome gentleman, as far as we know, attending discos and illegal raves to hunt their prey before escaping in their black BMW. They hunt by asking people for the time. You are damned if you answer. You can recognise the Disco Demon by checking out their feet, because those aren't disco shoes, they are hooves. The demon also stinks of sulphur, but we've heard that about many demons. Was this one really a demon, or a hoax by those in control to control the behaviour of the youth? Or was it just a miserable old generation? Any final thoughts, Mr. Moonwalker, before we conclude?
It's really weird because I can imagine this being a story from the older generation to discourage the youth.
Mm-hmm.
But back in the day, not this being used in the 90s? I would have thought they would have just put out campaigns about how bad drugs are and what the side effects are, and you'd see all the really random adverts about drugs and
Well,
stuff. I can imagine that going on, but not a story about a disco demon in the 90s.
the world's just changed so much. Whatever's effective.
What if
What if?
this disco demon is a metaphor for something else and it's taken on a life of its own?
A metaphor for what?
Or like how young girls were probably told not to get in cars with strangers or not to leave with strangers when they leave a nightclub. So, and maybe an advert was put out or a story was put out similar to this, and over time it's grown into something else.
So
Do I think it's a demon? No.
Are you saying that it was demons?
No.
So what you're saying is yes.
No. No. No, it's not.
Just no.
No.
Okay. Yeah, the evidence in this case is freaking minimal. Literally, there are articles out there with one paragraph on this thing. The demon asks for the time, kills if the time is given, then escapes in a BMW with horns. That is pretty much all I had to work with. It's literally the smallest case I've yet covered. Suffice to say, Amelia didn't exist and there is no evidence as to woe either. I think this one is an old wives' tale that got around Europe, not necessarily from the government, but from possibly the old generations trying to scare youngsters away from having a good time, be that protect them from harm or because that older generation was grisly. Any final thoughts, Mr. Moonwalker?
Whoa. Popcorn. I didn't think that these people didn't exist at all. I just wondered if they had and they used them as an excuse for their story. But the fact that you just told me that they don't exist, yeah, this is
Well, I
bullshit.
couldn't find any evidence, as I said. Nothing backing up any of this. Nothing. And that is a wrap for today. Thank you for listening to But It Was Aliens. If you've enjoyed what we do, you can support the show and hear some more over at patreon.com/But It Was Aliens. There, each month, we release bonus episodes we call Side Probes, where we examine the dirtier of paranormal mysteries, histories, and conspiracies. You can gain access to these episodes for quite literally less than a cup of coffee. You can share episode suggestions with us on the Twitter @But It Was Aliens. You could also say hello on Facebook, where connected to But It Was Aliens is a secretly public private group called Extraterrestrial Towers. Being a member of Extraterrestrial Towers grants you protection from the aliens when they invade. If anybody asks you for the time in the towers, please do answer them. On an unrelated note, there is a rumour going around that we've made a deal with a demon to provide the souls of the probers in exchange for gains, but that is absolutely unfounded, but also do make sure that you always give the time. That is it for this episode, so until next time. Before clocks were invented, how did people know how to turn clockwise? The truth is up there. #.